Hello, good morning, friends. Myself, Dr. Naval Singh Todawat, Assistant Professor in the subject of Botany. Today, we will be having a lecture for the BSc first year student on the paper that is Diversity of Cryptogams First. In this paper, we have gone thoroughly uh, with regards to the respects of viruses, bacteria, lichens, mycoplasma, and cryptogams' general characters. Now we move forwards towards the algae. Friends, usually when we speak on the algae and when we talk about the kingdom Plantae, we know that the algae are the plants. But what type of plants these algae are? Do they have stem, roots, leaves, or whether they are, when they are cryptogams, incorporated in thallophytes? Whereas we talk about the Plantae kingdom or the phanerogams, it comes in our mind that there may be plants such as trees, shrubs, herbs, and so on, climbers, and so on. But when we talk about the algae, we generally think that algae are those organisms found in water. As a layman, we assumed it and we have seen in our day to day life. But is it true whether the algae is only aquatic? No. Alga, alga means plural, that is a single species of algae, you may call it as alga. Algae is multicellular organisms. Some are unicellular, like blue green alga, and those are placed in monera, like bacteria and others. These organisms have the body that is thallophytes. They are autotrophs. Photosynthetically apparatus are present. They reproduce by three of modes, that is sexually, asexually, and vegetative. The habitat of the alga is aquatic as well terrestrial, and sometimes they found on the trees and other substratum. Friends, this algae, that is thallophytic organisms, has chlorophyll. Six organs are there. As I spoke, they are unicellular or multicellular, which are presented by the sterile envelope. Algae means seaweeds. The term derived and the Latin word that is alga washed away plants on seashore. No sterile cell in sex organ except Cara is been found. When we see alga in the aquatic ecosystem, at that time we found most of the algal blooms free floating on the water body. Some alga like Cara we found which is attached to the substratum at the shallow body. They are thread like and many more. Some of the alga appear or the habitat in marine water, in fresh water, in ponds, in lakes, and sometimes in the river and running water. Obviously, the study of algae is known as the phycology. What do you mean by phyca? That is seaweeds. It was introduced by Carl Linnaeus in the 17th century 54, and algae means phycos. These organisms or these plants you may call love to be grow in aquatic as well as in the moist and wet places. Thalloid like body structure is there, chlorophyll is present, and the pigment that is present in the photosynthetic apparatus we called it as in algae that is chromatophores. Autotrophs, self mode of nutrition. Cell wall of this alga is rich in cellulose and seems to be seen motile due to the presence of cilia and the flagella. Starch food is reserve. Primitive alga reproduction is meant by vegetative methods, and some higher alga such as sexual as asexual. The spores of asexual reproductions, those are motiles, to be called as motile zoospores. In single-celled alga, a whole cell or the whole body of the single-celled alga act as a gametes, whereas in multicellular, gametangium is produced with the no sterile jacket. When we talk about the sexual reproduction, isogamous and oogamous structure is produced. In this slide, you may see the isogamy of the algal cell and anisogamy of the algal cell. Female and male both are presented here. Oogamous takes place in the fertilization of egg as well as the sperm. Oospore is formed by the development of thick wall of zygote. When we talk about the life cycle, whether it is isomorphic or heteromorphic, alternation of generation is commonly seen in the algal species. Now, when we talk about the habitats, seven groups are noted here. Before this, we talk about the aquatic, terrestrial, some of the alga growing on the plants, trees. Aquatic alga means the alga which is growing in the water. Edaphic means those growing on the soil. Aerial means the alga which is growing on the air. Cryophytic alga, symbiotic alga, or endophytic alga. The mutual parasitism we have seen in the lichens of the alga, parasitic alga and the endozoic alga. What is aquatic alga? Hydrophilus, free floating or submerged, as I spoke, found in freshwater pond, rivers, springs, some found in saline water or salt water, in still waters and running water. Still water means the water which is stagnant, such as pond, pool, etc. Udogonium, like algae, is found in the still water. Vaucaria and Cladophora in running water. Types of aquatic alga. Benthic algae, which are found attached to any substratum in the bottom of water bodies. Such alga are to be called as benthic alga or benthophytes. Phytes means plants. Which are benthophytes alga? Chara, Nightella, and Cladophora. Epactic alga. These alga found attached to the substrata along the shores. It is called as epactic phytes. For example, Spirogyra. Thermophilic. Thermophilic means what? The name itself suggests the temperature of the water body or the atmosphere. Most of the algae have been found in hot springs around 55 degrees Celsius and more. Such algae are known as to be thermophytes or thermophilic algae. Oscillatoria, you can see the diagram of the Oscillatoria species, and phytoplankton. Such alga floats on the surface of water. You may also call it as planktophytes. Early stages are attached and then become free floating. Those are tychoplanktophytes, Udogonium, Cladophora, and Sargassum. See, in this tychoplanktophytes, in the early stage of the alga, are attached to the substratum or to the substrate, but later on they are free floating. Some of remains free floating throughout the life. In initial stage, they do not attach to the any substrata. That is volvox, we have seen most of the colonies, and chlamydomonas. Epizoic algae, some of the alga found on aquatic animals. It is otherwise called epizoophytes or epizoic algae. Means the alga which are found on the other organisms, those are called as epizoic alga. Filaments of Cladophora found to be attached on the snail. Epiphytic, Chara, Nightella, Udogonium. This alga to be found on the other plants growing. Then halophytic, which are living in salt water, such as oceans. Those are Chlamydomonas alga. Then next to that, we move towards the edaphic alga, which are living in or on the moist soil. These edaphic alga are also known as the edapophytes, or generally we use the term terrestrial alga. Some live in the surface of the soil where organic matter is abundant. Which are those? Example Vaucaria. Algae which live below the soil surface are to be called as cryptophytes. Those are nostoc and anabina. Aerial alga. Why they are being called as aerial? Some of the found on plants, as I spoke, some on animals, some on walls, some on wires and rocks. Where epiphyllophytes alga live in leaves of phyllosiphon. Epiphyllophytes live in bark. Epizoophytes live in terrestrial animals. Lithophytes, that is, live in rocky substratum. Cytonema, Chitophyra, Trentophila, and many more. So, friends, in today's lecture, we are studying regarding the phycology, that is, alga of the general characters. And in next lecture, we will be continuing with the same topic. Till then, thank you.